These are just some images from the trips that we run, basically to show you that travel happens everywhere. It happens in the mountain, it happens within the community, and it also happens in beautiful beaches like this. Can anyone guess which beach this is? So this is a beautiful beach called Pemba in Mozambique. In 2019, Time magazine had featured an entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur called Amy, to be top 100 influencers in tourism industry for setting up amazing initiatives which uplifted tens and thousands of people of poverty. And this photo was taken 2 days before the landfall of Cyclone Kenneth. And the challenge that I'm sure, like that day we called Amy, we spoke to her, like even till today we are regularly in touch purely because she had set up a not-for-profit foundation to uplift the local communities, and she was using the power of tourism. But when something like this crazy cyclone Kenneth happened, which is in the history of Mozambique, the largest ever, I think 35 or 43 people died, about $350 million were the loss. Her biggest challenge was that she could see choppers going above her head. She could see flights coming in with EU-supported funds, NGOs, Oxfam GB, everybody coming in, but she couldn't get the support she was supposed to give to her people, the people with whom she was working. I'm sure at that time she would have thought, I wish I had the capacity, resources and tools in my hand to make a difference.
In August 2018, we experienced a once-in-100 years deluge. For a few days it was fun. By mid-August, incessant rain forced rivers to breach and mudslides from the mountains. Then came the flood. In Chendamangalam, the weaving community of more than 300 families saw their livelihoods washed away. Looms, properties, stock, drowned under the water up to 12 feet deep. Piles of stinking soil clothes lay strewn behind the weaving units and along the village road. Where most saw devastation, social entrepreneurs Lakshmi and Gopi saw opportunities. This is where the story of Chekutis began. Through crowdsourcing, 50,000 volunteers in 9 countries upcycled the ruined clothes into 120,000 plus Chekutis. 360 dolls out of each worthless sari. Selling the Chekutis raised the much needed funds for the weavers. They also captured the mood of the time. A beacon of resilience and solidarity shown by our people during the flood. This child from the village of Chendamangalam was someone we all could relate to. It had scars, it had stains. It didn't pretend another perfect world at all. It was us. They are used as gifts, decorations, luggage tags and lanyards, as workshop tool for children affected by trauma, as a memory to hold on to, as a reminder of the height we reached as a humanity. The Chekutis are still young, but they are growing, sharing new stories of supporting the underprivileged with dignity, and telling the world that Kerala isn't just only God's own country. It's also a land of Chekutis. Because this isn't just a story of one village, it's the beginning of 35 million stories, all from one place.
So this, from all the way to Pemba, to the small state where I am from, Kerala, here the loss to the destination because of that flood was 48,000 crores, which is $5 billion US. Now imagine if you are a tour operator sitting in London or San Francisco or here in Delhi. if you know a destination is constantly, frequently being ravaged by floods or any climate change related incidents, how many of you would say, that's okay, that's fine, I'll still send my traveler? So when a disaster happens in a destination, it's not only the local communities that are affected, it's not only the local tour operators, small guys like us who are affected, it's also affecting the source market. Imagine if somebody, there are travel companies like in UK with their branding related to Kerala. They sell destinations, they promote destinations with the name Kerala. And if you are constantly hearing this news, that it's affected, you are going to think twice, multiple times, do I want to send my traveler there? So this is where the need for building what I personally call as a co-creating climate resilient destinations. And how is that possible? Is it possible at all? I don't know. We'll talk about that. And many of you might have probably in the past few weeks seen this image. This is from Ladakh. And this whole 21 days of fasting was, how the media was showing was more about Ladakh to get the statehood. But the real story was, it's their fight to make sure that they hold on to whatever little is left. And in that, it's a 20-minute, there's a beautiful speech, you should actually listen to it, but I'll just summarize it. One of the biggest point was that when Sonam was talking about this whole, the need for Ladakh to come together, what he was requesting to people like us living in Delhi or Kochi or in the urban cities of the world was that please be very mindful about how you consume and how you live. Because the glacier that is melting in Ladakh has a direct connection to how we live, as well as the other way around. If the glaciers are melting, it's affecting people in my village in Kerala. I don't know if you would believe this little video that I'm going to show you. I'm skipping this. That's where I live, Kochi. How the media portrays the Kochi. Most of the tour operators also would know Kochi like this. But the Kochi that I see literally on a day-to-day basis is this.
ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട കളക്ടർ സാർ അറിയുവാൻ, ഞങ്ങളുടെ നാട്ടിലെയും എൻ്റെ വീട്ടിലെയും കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഓർമ്മിപ്പിക്കാനാണ് ഈ എഴുത്ത്. ഇപ്പോൾ കുറേ കൊല്ലമായിട്ട് ഉപ്പുവെള്ളമാണ് ഞങ്ങളുടെയൊക്കെ വീടിൻ്റെ ചുറ്റിലും. വീടൊക്കെ കേടായി. എൻ്റെ കൂട്ടുകാർ ആദിത്യൻ്റെയും അതുലിൻ്റെയും പിന്നെ ആര്യയുടെയും വീട്ടിൽ 2011 ഓരുവെള്ളം കയറാൻ തുടങ്ങിയതാ. 13 കൊല്ലമായിട്ട് അവർ ഇങ്ങനെ ജീവിക്കണേ. 15 മിനിറ്റ് വെള്ളത്തിൽ കൂടി നടന്നിട്ടാ സ്കൂളിൽ പോണേ. കാലാവസ്ഥ മാറ്റാന്നാ പറയണേ. കുറേ വീടും പോയി, ആൾക്കാർക്ക് ജോലിയും പോയി. നാരായണൻ ചേട്ടനൊക്കെ എത്ര മീൻ കിട്ടിയിരുന്നതാ, ഇപ്പൊ ഒന്നുമില്ല, തൂമ്പുപണി മാത്രമേ. ഇവിടുത്തെ മെമ്പറൊക്കെ പലതും ശ്രമിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്, പക്ഷെ ഒറ്റയ്ക്ക് എന്താവാനാ. ഞങ്ങളുടെ വാർഡിൽ കഴിഞ്ഞ 4 വർഷം ഏതു ദിവസം എത്ര മഴ പെയ്തു എന്ന് കൃത്യം ഡാറ്റ കയ്യിലുള്ള കുട്ടിയുണ്ട്. ഇങ്ങനെ നോക്കുമ്പോൾ മഴയുടെ പാറ്റേൺ മനസ്സിലാക്കാൻ പറ്റും. നമ്മുടെ പ്രശ്നത്തിൻ്റെ കൃത്യ വിവരങ്ങളുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ പരിഹാരം ഉണ്ടാക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ലേ? ഇത് മുരുകേശൻ ചേട്ടൻ ലക്ഷക്കണക്കിന് കണ്ടൽ നട്ടിട്ടുണ്ട്. ആൾക്കിത് ചെയ്തിട്ട് എന്താ ലാഭം? ആള് ചെയ്യുന്നതിൻ്റെ ഗുണം ഞങ്ങൾ കുട്ടികൾക്കാണ്. കാലാവസ്ഥാ വ്യതിയാനത്തെ അതിജീവിക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്ന കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ സ്വന്തം അരിയാണ് പൊക്കാളി. അത് ഇവിടെ കൃഷി ചെയ്യാൻ ആളില്ല. എന്നാൽ വിച്ചപ്പൻ ചേട്ടൻ 12 ഏക്കറിൽ എല്ലാ കൊല്ലവും പൊക്കാളി വിളവെടുക്കും. ഇങ്ങനത്തെ വലിയ കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന ആളുകളെ നമ്മൾ വഴികാട്ടികളാക്കേണ്ടേ. സസ്നേഹം, ദേവനന്ദൻ.
You know, when we were shooting this, the biggest challenge that we had was how the hell are we going to shoot this without making it look like a brochure of Kerala? You know, anybody knowing Kerala, like, you know, it's like if you follow the Instagram reels, you will actually see many of these shots, beautiful islands, like, you know, hamlets. It's not at all beautiful for the people living there. You know, the water that you saw, this was not shot during monsoon. This was shot actually in a summer. And the water that you see, it's actually sea water. Sea had entered these coastal villages in 2011 and it didn't go back. So imagine the scenario. You wake up every day morning, like you sleep, and then you wake up, and when you put your foot on the floor, there's 1 inch of water. And if it's only for an hour, it's all right. Imagine 365 days. Those kids, we didn't plan the story. We heard about them, we went there and we shot. These kids go to school every single day, 15 minutes, one way, 15 minutes. The extra bag they carry is actually another extra clothes, which they change in public. Imagine the trauma of girls who are going to school every day. So we can talk about so many things. We can talk about sustainable tourism. We can talk about responsible tourism, all kind of stuff. But this is gross climate injustice. And when you look at, like, you know, when I go to Europe, I'm invited to sit on so many panels. I'm advising different organizations, agencies. White European North, you know, the panels are like that. You go to WTM, you will see 16 people sitting in a panel talking about our lives, the global south. They would not even take an initiative to invite somebody, a female scientist from India or Kenya or Sri Lanka, to sit there, and because they are bloody hell discussing our life. So this narrative that is designed and devised all around, somewhere, many places they are talking about the need for building resilience. And these people, they have crossed all that. This is about climate change adaptability. You know, like when we invited the cinematographers to come and work with us, the budget was just going above whatever we had in our mind. But the moment they went there into these houses, they said, sorry Gopi, there is no way we can charge you for this. Because they felt so guilty, because they live in Kochi, which is not even 20 minutes away from Fort Kochi. And they didn't know that such people live. And we are talking about, like in my business, we personally know at least 20,000 houses like this. Just in Kochi. Now, in that Ladakh fasting discussions, Sonam is constantly talking about how Ladakhis are going to be climate refugees. We have them long way back in Kerala. Not small numbers, 50,000, 60,000 families have left areas of the backwaters. You know, backwaters is such a stunning, visually stunning places. Like I always joke, like I always tell the Kerala tourism, friends in Kerala tourism, if at all I have anybody remaining now, that in the past 20 years ago, the Kerala tourism advertisements about houseboats, the nightlife, it was so stunning because there will be just one houseboat in like 2 square kilometers in the middle of the night, little lamps on it, lanterns on it, and they would proudly say, this is our nightlife, slow traffic. The same thing is going to happen soon. It will be slow traffic. There will be, but the image that you're going to see is very eerie because you're going to see empty houses because people are vacating. Now this is the reality that is happening. But at the same time, it's not really all that terrible. This is one question that a lot of people ask us. Like, I was part of this TPCC, tourism panel on climate change. During the Glasgow Declaration or even the Egypt conference, you know, they put together some findings about what is happening. Especially in the backdrop of Glasgow Declaration, or when tourism declares climate crisis, we were one of the first 5 or 6 companies that signed up for that, knowing very much about what we are getting into it, because at least somewhere you have to start acknowledging that tourism industry has to acknowledge that there is a crisis. A lot of us don't realize it because it's not touching our life. We are so privileged. I am so bloody privileged. But that's not the case with people living down there, especially in even a small state like Kerala with $5 billion, that is roughly about 10 to 14% of our GDP, depending on tourism. When disaster happens, it affects communities and it affects the destination. And when it affects destination, it affects tourism industry. And this is the case globally. Earlier, when we used to talk about climate change, it was so difficult to get attention of somebody. But now, it's so easy to talk to a German. It's so easy for me to talk to a New Yorker, because the New Yorker can't actually move in the subway because there's constant flash floods. You can't walk through Washington, D.C. without really, getting your feet wet in many places, because similar to the tidal flooding that I just showed you in that video is happening in DC, in many places. So the communication is happening. So now there's a genuine interest that I am seeing from the Western world, Western tour operators, Indian tour operators asking, what is it that we can do? So again, do I have solutions for everything? No. But what we try to do is, I will just show you one small initiative, couple of initiatives, since we are running out of time. Like the other day, I was on a small panel with Travel Foundation, where the discussion was about 700, 800 people have signed the Glasgow Declaration, but a lot of people, they have signed it, they have acknowledged, but the next steps, what do we do? This is a big question. And it's not even about lack of money. Many tour operators, they actually personally called us and said, we are ready to commit 1% of our turnover. These are $1 million companies. So people are ready to spend money, but they are very hesitant. Where is my money going? Such questions are coming. So there are discussions about, can we, start similar to the various certifications that are happening around the world right now. People are talking about, can we do a vulnerability assessment? This morning we heard about millions and millions of dollars investing into building hotels. Now, we often get approached by companies who want to move into sustainability space, asking, can you be our consultant, because we want to build a sustainable hotel, 100-key hotels in North Kerala. And then we ask them, what's your budget? And they would very clearly say, as long as there is an ROI, budget is not an issue. Even such people, when they come, because sustainability is such a fancy word, and then my personal opinion is, the moment you start, the human intervention starts, it's no longer sustainable. It's an aspiration. Being responsible is one way to move there, to reach there. And so to such people, what we are telling them is very simple things, like it's important to start with doing a climate vulnerability assessment. Like the village where I live, where one of our friends' property, Kranganur, is there. Ever since Kranganur came, a lot of people have started coming in there with an interest to invest in that place. But nobody is aware of the fact that the saline water is actually entering everybody's walls. It's creeping all the way up there. So if you're spending $80 million into investment into a place, at least spend $100,000 to do a basic vulnerability assessment to see, because it's all about ROI. So all those stuff. So we put together a small not-for-profit foundation called Resilient Destination Foundation soon after the pandemic. And in our foundation, we've got a climatologist, we've got a hydrologist, we've got a behavioral energy expert, and I come with a disaster management and tourism background in it. And one thing that we conceived is that it is important that in the future, whatever you do in culture, whatever you do in terms of building properties, you create economic livelihood opportunities for communities. All you need is one flash flood. That's all gone. So how do you prepare communities? Because by the time the communication comes from top down, all the way from the government here in Delhi, all the way down to Kerala or to Ladakh, to multiple places, it's a bit too slow. By the time another flood would have gone through the system, that this is what we are facing. So is it possible to build community-based early warning forecasting system. This is something that we've been working on. Like a couple of months ago, our partner Equinox actually won the UNICEF Innovation Award for building the early warning forecasting system. So this, the whole idea of the CRD as we call it is that in the future, any tourism development, like we hear a lot about the climate action in tourism. And this is about changing the LED lights, this is about, changing the linens. Unfortunately, we are still stuck in this old stuff. I'm not saying those are not bad, but the thing is, we have to think beyond that, beyond the hotel, beyond the tourism industry, beyond the particular tour operator, but start thinking about the destination. And that destination, I'm not talking from the perspective of a tourism destination, but a destination where people live. If the community is affected, you're going to be out of the business sooner or later. Like that islands that I showed you in that video, those are just like 20-25 minutes away from Fort Kochi. So imagine the scenario, you build a structure like this, and every day morning, half an inch of water enters your reception or your bedroom. And the next day, TripAdvisor review is going to be, I spent $300 to stay at your property, but I could not even take a dump because the toilet system is all broken because the tidal flooding has ended. This is the ground reality that is happening. So we can't, sitting here in India, in the global south, saying that, the West has gone through all the industrial revolution, they have had the comfort, they have made the money, so now it's our turn that we have to go through this whole process. No. It is high time that we also be very cautious and take decisions in such a way that we need to decarbonize in a way, unbelievable way we have to decarbonize. So how can tour operators do this? So it is actually possible quite a lot. Like my business, 80% of the business before pandemic was European travelers or American travelers. Post-pandemic, immediately, it was so surprising, 96% of my travelers were Indian travelers last year. But now it's again back. European travelers are traveling, but the trend that I'm seeing is in our business is that people are staying longer. Swedish travelers are traveling 36 days with us. The max this year was 42 days. Families traveling for 42 days, but telling, we will not be coming for another 10 years. So such conscious decisions, I don't know how many people can afford such travel. So if your dependency is on inbound travel, we need to look at all these things. So another thing that we have started doing is to quantify. Because unless and otherwise I quantify my emission, there is no way I can address the issue. However small, it is actually possible, with interns, with some guys with MSc in environmental science, we are putting together a team now. Every single trip we just started documenting. But again, within the team, the discussion is about what do you do about the flights? That is beyond, but you calculate that as well. But then what you do is, at least what we are doing is, I'll just finish this in 3 minutes. For the traveler, this is a beautiful dining experience. But for us, this was a project that we conceived as a climate change adaptability project. The idea was that because of climate change, what's happening in and around Cochin, is that the sea level water is rising. The temperature difference that you see in the sea is now reflected in our backwaters. The fish diversity has gone down tremendously. The fish count has gone down tremendously. So in many cases, even those who own Chinese fishing net are not even earning 100 rupees. That's crazy. Kerala is a place where your average daily wage is 1,000 rupees. This is the life that's going on. So we were looking at this, how can you convert this crisis into an opportunity where you can bring in livelihood with dignity? So rather than launching large projects like, telling like, okay, we need to do something on decarbonization, what we started doing is that let's pick up what is possible for us as a small tour operator. Look at the crisis that is around your area and see how you can convert your platform, which is your business, into a solution where you can actually bring in climate change adaptability, sometimes climate resilience. In this case, like we are even training the fishermen and the farmers to be first responders so that in the future, when another crisis happens, they know what to do. And this is how in 2018, like it did not even take 30 minutes for our team to put together our resources and tools, to the extent that like in the first 24 hours, we managed to rescue about 4,500 people. Of course, we worked with the government, with the local police, and we even had operators sitting here in Delhi sending us dinghies, sending us rescue stuff. That's the power of tourism industry. Now, in terms of, again, another one like a mangrove, we got about 200 plus activities that we have created now focusing on climate resilience. Because unless and otherwise, local tour operators or DMCs, we do things hand in hand, we are not going to find any solution. So rather than just thinking about, oh, I'm not an NGO, I'm not into CSR funding, what tour operators can do is to actually create beautiful experiences which brings in money into the community, which also make sure that there are climate change adaptability in each. It is all possible. We just need to think slightly out of the box. No rocket science. You don't need to be an environmental scientist to do what we are doing. It's just to understand what is going on there. But at the many times what happens is for a lot of tour operators, they don't, or we don't have the core competency to do something like that. That's where we partner with guys who are already doing it. Like if Global Himalayan Expedition is doing kick-ass work in the Himalayas, partner with them. But then our industry is so insecure, especially our DMCs are so insecure, they are so scared of partnering with people. The moment they partner, they're like, oh my God, my business from Europe is going to be taken away by this guy. I face this all the time. But then, I don't know how to overcome that, but what we should all do is to partner, collaborate, because there won't be any destinations in the future, if we are not working together. So to conclude, to highlight this small work that we are doing, last ITB Berlin, we announced that we are going to launch a platform called Kaita. Now, Kaita is an aspiring platform. Hopefully by 2025, we'll be able to launch it globally. We need shitloads of money to do that. The idea is to bring together the humanitarian sector and the tourism sector on a common platform so that in the future, when a disaster happens, whether it's Nairobi or Kathmandu or some places, anywhere in the world, we should be able to kickstart. We should be able to open up the resources in such a way that hoteliers who have committed their rooms, because during a crisis, the humanitarian sector, whatever they need, there are about 4-5 key things that they need to activate the response, which are shelter, accommodation, they need food and beverage with dignity, they will need access to logistics, supply chain, vehicles, everything. They need all these things. And highly skilled human resources and the ability to raise funds because there is an emotional connect to destination. Tell me one sector in the world that is sitting with all these things unutilized. That's our $9 trillion tourism industry. Why can't we repurpose our industry smartly and creatively so that we can actually, create a destination that are resilient? So if we don't have the core competency, we can bring in the humanitarian sector and use our resources. And the other way around. Imagine training 1,000 taxi drivers in Delhi. How much is it going to cost for tour operators like us to train that many taxi drivers? Imagine how many million taxi drivers are in India. So we can't always expect for the government to come in all the time. They are also getting tired because of resources constraint. They don't have enough money, they don't have enough people. But we are a $9 trillion industry, which I think we have a lot of commitment. And this is not about charity. I'm not asking anybody to give your 2% to something like this, but rather it's about investing in our own survival. Because if there is no destination, if there is no community, there's no tourism. Yeah. Peggy, Nina, Shobha, yeah, they've all been to that little video. Oh yeah, of course, we've got to oh my God, these guys. Can you guys please stand up just for 1 second? So Neeta and Ashu, without knowing what they were doing, they were actually the first tour operators to bring about 20 Australian and New Zealand tour operators immediately after the Kerala flood. And when a lot of people were cancelling, they took a decision that they're going to convince their travelers because of the positive stories that were coming from the destination. This is again something so crucial. Now you may sit, but thank you. It's so crucial that, because this is not a one-off event. Earlier when this flood happened in Kerala, everybody was talking about it's once in 100-year stuff. But we were actually preparing for this flood for 8 years. Actually, there is a podcast called 6 Years and a Flood, based on what one of the Panchayat secretary told us. After the flood, he called me and said, Gopi, it took 6 years and a flood for us to understand what the hell you're talking about. Then my only request was that don't wait another 6 years and another flood to learn more, because, so during that time, if you know that these guys in Kerala or in Ladakh or in Nairobi, they are taking care of the people and the destination is actually compassionate to understand what is going on and taking positive steps to counter it and overcome it, it will also instill confidence among our FTOs, like what these two wonderful people did actually for us. Thank you.